Hi guys, welcome back. Very, very long time no see. I know. I honestly wasn't sure if I was going to come back to doing YouTube or not, but I feel like it's time for me to start back up again. So I wanted to catch you up to what I've been doing and kind of share with you where my focus is now, because things have changed quite a bit. So when I last spoke with you guys, I had been getting test results and trying to figure out everything that was wrong with me, wrong in quotes, trying to chase down health. And I was really kind of having a hard time with it. I had been low carb for I think 5 years by that point in time, and seen incredible and really good things happen. And then also some not so incredible and some not so good things that had happened. So I was trying to balance and figure out where my sweet spot was. And in my low carb journey, I kind of dubbed myself the 3%, because I would try something and everybody would say, this is all you have to do is this, and it works. And I always found myself in that 3% category where it didn't work for me. Or maybe it worked, but then also had some pretty negative side effects. And I could not, for the life of me, figure out why. I've tried everything from vegan to strict carnivore, every iteration in between, to find my so-called sweet spot. And ironically, I found it within the last year. And I haven't really been sharing it with you guys for many reasons. I didn't want anyone to follow what I was doing. I didn't want a whole lot of things. And I was really on more of a personal journey. And at that time, I didn't really want to announce it, shout it from the rooftops. But now is time. And honestly, this is probably one of the last videos of mine where you're going to see me talk about dieting. And there's a reason for that. I remember quite a while ago, someone had asked me if I knew I was going to die in 30 minutes from now, what would you want? And my answer was, I want a venti Starbucks and I want a Krispy Kreme donut. Because I'm not going to have to deal with the consequences of eating and drinking that, because I'm going to die in 30 minutes. And that was very telling to me, because in my last moments, what was most important to me was food. And at that moment, I realized that my diet, my food, my lifestyle choices had become an idol to me. And we are instructed in the Bible to treat our bodies as a temple and to take care of them. But there's a fine line between taking care of what we're given and idolizing what we are given. And it shows up in a lot of different ways. I took my kids to a water park with our youth group, and I found myself looking around at different people and comparing myself to them, even though it was quietly and it was inside. I realized that that had become my idol. Well, I think I kind of look like that person. Maybe, yeah, I think I look like them. Well, at least I don't look like them. Oh man, I don't think I ever looked like that. Did I ever look like that? Maybe when I was 12. That kind of stuff. And that really kind of ate at me. And I decided I needed to stop idolizing my body. And to do that, I had to step away from the food choices as well. So I needed to refocus and find what truly mattered to me. And of course, I'm a Christian, and God has always been in the forefront of my mind, and I needed to get him back there. So I started digging, and I started looking at what the Bible had to say about staying healthy, about making sure that we are doing the right thing to take care of our temple. And of course, I ended up at the Proverbs 31 woman, because that's generally where a lot of us, especially women, are trying to see what is the epitome of what God sees as a godly woman. And it struck me that never once did they mention what she looked like. They said what she was dressed in, and that was to designate the work that she had done, the wealth that she may have gained through her husband or through herself, because it says that she is wise, she's hardworking, she's all these things, and never once did it say she had a fair figure. It didn't talk about that. So that's when I realized that's not what really matters. Now, I do absolutely focus on being the best me that I can be health-wise, just so that I can do the things that God's called me to do with our farm and with our animals and with our children. I want to be able to participate in life as much as possible. So I exercise. A lot of it is just stretches. I still eat the things that don't make me feel bad, if that makes sense. I don't eat gluten still. I absolutely cannot. In those tests that I'd gotten all that time ago, I found out that soy of any kind was a big problem for me. So all the soy sauce recipes that I was using, I had to get rid of those, and I replaced it with coconut aminos, which has higher carbs. I had to give up the rice. So Sally Norton and all of the amazing work that she's doing with oxalates, she eats rice. I can't do that because rice, white and brown, are both on my moderate reaction list. So not okay. There's also egg whites. Literally all of our stuff, all of our recipes have the egg white powder, the egg white bread, and I can't do the egg whites anymore. Even my coffee had a whole egg in it. Now my coffee has an egg yolk in it instead of the whole egg. So I did make those adjustments, and I don't eat the things that make me feel awful or give me a bad reaction. Oh, the other really fun one was erythritol. How many of our keto products are made with erythritol? Nearly all of them. So I was, in fact, by trying to eat low carb and do that, I was actually hurting myself. And that explains why all of the things that I was doing, I seemed to have some good reactions, but then also some not so good reactions. And so I went to God and I really began to pray, what is my next step? And a lot of what he told me was, I need to unlearn a lot of the things that I learned as truth, because God's truth is different than our truth. So there's this idea that as a Christian, we deserve and can be and claim healing. But the Bible does not support that. And I have spoken to many people who believe that if you haven't received your healing, it's simply because you don't have enough faith. Well, I can tell you, I was convinced. I would have bet my firstborn child that going carnivore was going to fix everything for me. I was completely sold on that. And yet, that wasn't the case for me. So in 2 Corinthians, I'm going to read this for you. In 2 Corinthians 12:8, we're talking about Paul at this point in time. Paul says, 3 different times, I begged the Lord to take it away. And he's talking about a thorn in his flesh. Each time the Lord said, here comes the red letters, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me. So Paul, an apostle, asks Jesus personally 3 times, please take away my infirmity, take away my illness, my disease, my brokenness, my whatever it was. He says, take it away from me. And Jesus to his face says, no, my grace is enough. You don't need me to take that away. And then in 1 Timothy 5:23, Paul is talking to Timothy, and these guys have been all over the place, and they have been healing, they have been working miracles and performing wonders for so many other people. And Paul has to tell Timothy in verse 23, don't drink only water. You ought to drink a little wine for the sake of your stomach because you are sick so often. If these guys have been performing all these miracles and they've been healing so many people, why doesn't Paul just go over and heal his friend? At the beginning of this video, there should be a clip, a short little image of a cup. And it says, with God, all things are possible. And I think we mistake that saying for if I want it enough, God will give me what I want. Now, sometimes that actually does happen, but I think we need to look at that a different way. So if you look at Isaiah 38, there's a story about King Hezekiah. And I think we need to be very careful about what we pray for, what we demand. So I'll start in chapter 9. I'll just kind of give you a little bit of context. Hezekiah is sick and he calls for Isaiah. And he's like, am I going to get better? And Isaiah's like, set your house in order. I'm sorry. It says in verse 1, it says, thus says the Lord, set your house in order, for you shall die and not live. Our time here on this earth is but a vapor, a blink of an eye. It's fleeting. I know it seems like it's so much, but it's really not when you look at eternity, billions and billions and billions of years that we are going to have as children of God with him in heaven. What happens here on this earth is minuscule. So down in verse 9 of Isaiah 38, verse 9, it says, I am writing of King Hezekiah of Judah after his illness and recovery. I said, in the middle of my life, I am to enter the gates of Sheol, and I am to be deprived the rest of my years. And I said, I shall not see the Lord in the land of the living. I shall look on men no more among the inhabitants of the world. Like a shepherd's tent, my dwelling is pulled up and removed from me. As a weaver, I rolled up my life, and he cuts me off from the loom. From day until night, thou dost make an end of me. Drama king. And that is the depiction of most of us. He claims that God is cutting off his years. He is being deprived of what is owed to him. I can tell you as a believer, what is owed to us is hell and death because we are sinners. The first 2 chapters of the Bible and the last 2 chapters of the Bible are God's plan for humanity. Everything else in the middle is us mucking it up and him chasing after us, showing us grace and compassion and mercy when we don't deserve it. We deserve punishment, we deserve death, and yet he sent us his son instead. So we are not being deprived of anything when we focus on our health and chasing after the perfect body. That's not what our focus should be. That is an idol. And so with all of that, I changed my focus and I began chasing after God. I began trying to create in myself a godly woman. And I will do videos on that as well, about being a godly mother, a godly wife, because that changes everything. All of a sudden, what I'm owed, that, the 97% get, I don't actually think it's 97% of people it works for. I think it's far less than that. The 3%ers, we're just quiet. We don't generally talk about it. But what I found to be true is the more I focused on God, the less I focused on me. And all of a sudden, self-control became easier because, well, it's one of the fruits of the Spirit. So all of a sudden, I don't have to abstain from something anymore. I can moderate it now because I have my focus on the right place. Before, my focus was my body, my image, my everything, instead of God. So I want to share that with you so that you know what I've been doing, where I've been. I still eat things that make me feel good, and I don't always hold to all the low carb ideology. I really began to struggle when people would say things like my lizard brain, because God made me. And I don't think God makes mistakes. No, I know God doesn't make mistakes. He made me this way. And I will struggle with my flesh until the day that I die. But to say that my lizard brain is taking over, it feels like it's an injustice to what God has created. He gave me a mind, and He gave me the ability to understand, comprehend, and reason. So instead of giving power to my lizard brain that caused me to binge on all of these things, I instead look at it as my spirit is weak and my flesh is strong, and I need to battle with that. And the only one that can help me battle that is God. So now my focus is pretty much fully on Him. And my children have seen the difference. My husband has absolutely seen the difference. And what's really funny, I was actually talking to my oldest daughter the other day and talking to her about, well, it'd be cool if I ended up losing a little bit of weight, just because getting up and down is a little bit easier if I could just be a little bit thinner. And she looked at me and she goes, I gotta be honest, I like you like this. She goes, it just seems like it's more you. So many times our perception of ourselves is just so much more and so much less all at the same time. So I'm trying to continually focus on what God sees. How does God see me? What does He have for me? Now, in that story of Hezekiah, it goes on and he moans and he wails, and God says, okay, I'll give you 15 more years. So He sends Isaiah back and He says, go tell him he's got 15 more years. So Hezekiah's like, yes, I got 15 more years. Well, then something very interesting happens. Nothing but bad things happen for 15 years. So there are times that God will give us what we're asking for, but it's not the best thing for us. And as a believer, we need to believe and trust that when we die, it says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord immediately. Now, I'm not suggesting I'm going to go off myself. Not even a little bit. No self-delete. It's fine. My focus is to do the best that I can in this life. And then the minute that it's over, I will be with my Creator, who loves me so much that He sent His only Son to die for me. That is my focus. Who can I take with me is now my focus. So if you were to ask me again, if you had 30 minutes and you were going to die, what would you do? My answer is no longer I want a Starbucks and a Krispy Kreme donut. My answer is I'm going to call every single one of the family members that I've been trying to reach and trying to share the love of God with, and I'm going to minister to them one more time. Because who I take with me into my next life is what actually matters, not how much weight I lost. That's not what really matters. Eternity is what really matters. And so that is now my focus. Because sometimes when we demand and we continue to chase after things, Hezekiah is like, please. God gave him another 15 years. They were awful. They were awful. Babylon came in and it was a whole mess. Like, it was an awful 15 years. Whereas if he had died, he would have passed into the presence of God Almighty. That would have been the end of his suffering right there. It would have been over. Sometimes we expect God to answer our requests in the way we think they should be answered, and not trusting that he's answering them. Sometimes death of a loved one is their healing, especially when there's not much else that can be done for them. I believe that every believer should look forward to the day that they get to go home. We've been so afraid of death for so long. Being afraid of death, afraid of getting old. I have gray hair. Not much. There's really not much of it. But I get excited every time I find one. I'm like, I have a wisdom highlight. I got one. I'm not going to cover it up. You're never going to get me to dye my hair. I'm never going to do that. Because growing old has a grace to it. There's wisdom that comes with age from the things that we've been through. So I look forward to what God has for me, and I feel like he wants me to share that with you. So my focus is no longer going to be about my diet and my exercise and things like that. On this channel, it's going to be what is God showing me and teaching me and revealing to me through my life and through the lives of my children and my family. I think that's what matters the most. So thank you so much for listening and for watching. There's more videos to come. We're going to kind of take it slow at the start of this, and we'll see what happens from there. But I love you guys. For the ones that are still here and still watching me after all this time, I can never tell you how grateful I am for each one of you. And I pray blessings upon you. And I pray that you will join me on this new journey. So with that, I will let you guys go. I'm going to go drink my tea, and I will see you on the way. Because my nose itches. Oh, sorry, V. Oh, whoo. Okay. Now, there was something I was going to say. Oh, darn. Step away from the food choices as well. There were words. I'm going to take a sip of this and try to help me remember what I was going to say. I got nothing. So, good luck with this transition. Convinced I would have sold my firstborn child to guarantee, let me try that over again. I was completely, there's a word. This is, in verse 1, it says, ideology. Okay, that was it. 23 minutes take. I mean, I'm hoping for like a 20-minute video. We're going to see what happens. I don't know, my editor. Cheers, darling. She works wonders, but I have to give her something to use for bloopers, because bloopers are usually the best part. Hopefully I gave you some. I think that's it. Oh, my notes just turned off. That is terrible. I should turn them on and make sure I actually got everything. Is there a PS? There could be a PS on the video. Okay, we got Paul. We got Timothy. Praying for the Lord's will. Okay, Isaiah. Yep, okay. I talked about the mug. Hopefully I got the mug, the saying, right? I don't know. If I was going to die, I got that one. 15 years. Yep, got that one. Oh, I forgot about the Israelites and the meat and the manna. Oh, well, I think I got the point across. It's fine. Jacob. Oh, see, I didn't talk about that one either. About Jacob after losing Joseph. I'm deprived. Oh, I could have gone so much longer, but I think it was long enough. So, anyways.